Listen, laugh, and learn with Sacha and Ish as they share their experiences, thoughts, and tips to build skills that are not so average and a career that's not so ordinary. This is the Not So Breakfast Show.
All right, welcome to Not So Breakfast Show today, the podcast for leadership and career development. And today we switch on levels of awareness when it comes to exploring, investigating, maybe identifying the type of presenter that you are. These are things that Sacha and I have identified over the years in our time training public speakers and presenters, things that you can learn to avoid. And some of you will hear these and you'll go, oh, you know what? I think I do that. And you know what? You probably do. So let's have a chat about it, because I think if you can identify these traits and you can avoid them, then that will be good for you and good for us and good for everybody. And today on the show, I have got my favorite version of Sacha along, which is my Jedi version of Sacha, Obi-Wan Kenobi, in the dressing gown because it's cold in Hamilton, isn't it?
It is cold in Hamilton today. I am fully dressed, but it's just the temperature's dropped as the afternoon has progressed. And so I've just done the most practical thing, which is put my dressing gown on. And with my very white hair, I think I do look like a very kind of Obi-Wan character. So I'm expecting great wisdom to flow from me today, just because I've got my wise old costume on.
Nice. Well, you can see there on my shelf in the background, one new toy. I'll bring it up closer just so you can see it. I got a present given to me the other day by someone.
Yay, it wasn't me, so good on that person. Oh, here we go. Is that like a stormtrooper helmet?
It is from Mandalorian, but kind of a little bit of Boba Fett's helmet. Yeah, and then it's got a little button on the side when you go down. It's got a little laser in it.
Oh, yes. And so do you just wear that when you and Joe go for a walk in the neighbourhood?
Yeah, when I go for a walk, when we're just hanging out. Bit of cosplay.
It would get me in the mood.
A friend of mine came up to me and he said, I've got something for you. I've been thinking about giving it to you for a while because it's just been sitting in the bottom of my wardrobe. And I was just blown away. He pulls this thing out. I'm so stoked. And he goes,
so
I know
awesome.
It's going to go to a good place. And it's like, yeah, it is.
It's really hard when you get something like that. Yeah, you just want to wear it all the time because it's so cool, right?
Yeah.
I have something like that yesterday. What's today? Yeah, yesterday I ran an event in the Auckland Marathon. I did not run the marathon, but I ran the 11K traverse that takes you over the Harbour Bridge. And I use the word run advisedly. I ran some of the time and some of the time I walked. Good news is today I cannot walk at all. So that is the punishment for being a overfed and undertrained. But you would have been proud of me because I did the race, the 11Ks, and you have to do it at a certain time so that you don't miss the cut-off to go over the Harbour Bridge. So I had to go quite quickly in the first little bit, but I got a medal at the end. It was my first race medal. And honestly, I wanted to wear it to the supermarket. Just today, I wanted to get it out of my bag and put it on because it's like, why wouldn't you wear that everywhere you go?
Yeah, so you did that instead of watching the rugby?
I certainly did that instead of watching the Rugby World Cup because I knew that the Rugby World Cup final would take place whether or not I watched it. Whereas the only way I could get a medal and experience the joy of Auckland Harbour from the Harbour Bridge as a pedestrian or runner, there's only two ways you can do it. One is to be in a protest hikoi, where you march from Northland in support of some great cause, or alternatively, you enter one of the events in the Auckland Marathon. So that's what I did.
Nice. Well done, Sacha. I am proud of you. That is fantastic. I guess the third way to do it would just be to just run it and just end up in jail, but you don't get a medal for that one.
Even on the day, this was great. There was a guy who was running and he hadn't entered the race. He was running just ahead of me and the police took him out. Like there were 3 or 4 police that tackled him, moved him off, and he said, hey man, I just want to run over the bridge. And they said, hey man, you can't unless you're entered in the race. The traffic is shut off, the road is closed, it's only for race. He's like, but I'm just going for a run. You can't stop me, it's public land. They said, oh, we can stop you, all right. He said, what do you expect me to do? The reason I heard all the conversation was I was walking at this point, I was not running. He said, what do you expect me to do? And they said, well, you ran here, so you can run back from where you came. It was beautiful.
Oh, good. All right, well, why don't we talk about presenter persona? And the first one I've come up with is the caged cougar. So this savvy individual is the type of person that just paces backwards and forwards across the stage. And if you've ever been to a zoo, you'll see cougars basically pacing backwards and forwards. I thought I'd better reference cougar being a cat, not cougar being, older female pursuing a younger guy. But the caged cougar, they just go backwards and forwards. And that's what this person does. They just go backwards and forwards across the stage in a repetitive fashion.
Well, it's like the audience is watching someone play tennis without the payoff. I always remember from our zoo experiences watching polar bears do that. And it's a terrible sign of mental decline in the animals. But as a young kid, I didn't realise that. And I just thought at any moment now that polar bear is going to stop pacing and dive in. And that's what you're waiting for. You're just waiting for something to change. And it's the same with those caged cougars, the presenters who pace. You stop listening to what they're saying because you're just waiting for them to interrupt their pattern. And, one of the things that you and I like to see is movement on the stage. We don't want you to be stuck behind your lectern or behind the podium, but you absolutely have to move with purpose, not just get stuck in this walking back and forward pattern.
Yeah, that's right. And one of the ways to break that is to split up the stage, especially on big stages, and in your own head create reasons to go to a point in the stage. So if you were telling a story and a part of the story was that you were walking, well, walk somewhere on the stage. That makes sense. Or it might be that you go to a destination to land a point, or you move forward, or you go backwards, rather than just that point where it's just backwards and forwards. And it's more of a nerves thing, I think, although it could be mental decline as well. The next presenter persona is the reader. In fact, let's call them the newsreader, but it's not like they're teleprompted. They've actually just turned around and they're now reading their PowerPoint. And it's usually because they have so much context on their PowerPoint, or they're using their PowerPoint as some form of notes. And as a result, they start reading their slide. Dude, send me an email. I didn't come to watch you read. I came to listen to you present, and that's not presenting.
Well, I'm fascinated by the kind of the neuroscience around this, because we can read much faster than we can listen. What I mean by that is if you are reading your slides out, the main problem with it is the audience is reading them faster than you are speaking them. Even if you animate it so it goes bullet by bullet, you're saying, so the first point up there is that butterflies are beautiful winged creatures. And by the time you've said that, the audience finished half an hour before you finished your sentence. So they've read it already, and it's painful waiting for you to catch up. If you don't animate your slides, so you have all your bullet points, and you're going, butterflies are beautiful winged creatures. They come from caterpillars. Caterpillars grow on swan, whatever your fact set is, they've read the whole thing before you've even finished your first bullet point. Now, what fascinates me about this is young people today having the bloody captions on when they watch TV.
Yeah.
So how does that work? Because the captions come up, you read it, and now you're waiting for the actors to say it. I don't get it.
Well, I can't read fast. So I must be the odd one out, because the captions come on screen. So I can't even watch movies that are actually translated and you have to read the captions. By the time I've read it, the captions are gone. I don't know if you...
Right.
Yeah, I don't know if you remember when we used to play the quiz on the plane, but we would start reading the quiz, and of course you would answer, and I'm like, I haven't even read the question yet, Sash. So I will let you know when I've read the question, and then we can play the game together. So I guess it's a different speed of reading and different ways of learning.
It's not working for anybody.
No, it's not working for anyone. And especially when you've literally turned your back to the audience to now read your PowerPoint. It's like, what is the point of that? That's not presenting. That is literally just reading in front of people.
Reading a boring story in front of them, no impact, and they've read it before you've even started talking.
Yeah.
Or they haven't read it before you've started talking and you move on too quickly.
Yeah.
All dumb, all bad. Stop it.
Stop it. You know who you are.
Stop it.
Number 3 is scared of the mic person. And this is the person that is usually they're on a handheld. And what happens is they start talking when the handheld is high, and as they start talking, they drop it down, and now their voice isn't actually carrying out to the audience. So then, usually you have a helpful individual in the audience that'll come and push their arm back up, or they'll say, oh, you need to speak up, and they'll bring the mic up again, and then the microphone will slowly drop down again. It becomes a distraction, because all of a sudden it's like, I can hear you, now I can't hear you. Oh, they're talking into the mic, now they're not talking into a mic. And it just becomes the distraction that is not just distracting from what you are saying, but it's distracting everybody in the room from any type of interaction with your content.
There's another variation of this, and this is the person who says, out of shyness or lack of confidence, oh, no, I don't need a microphone, because they don't want to hear their voice amplified. So they go, no, it's,
Yes.
I'm not like a star that needs a microphone. I'll just talk. That's doing your audience such a disservice. There are people in your audience that are hard of hearing. Your audience needs the room to be filled with sound. Use the microphone. The other version of this is the person who comes again from, it's like a version of a lack of confidence where they have this fake overconfidence. No, everyone can hear me. I've got a big voice. You can hear me down the back, can't you, Bob? But they're projecting really loudly for the first minute, but they can't keep it up. They're not professional projectors. So they start by going, I want to talk about this, and then they just end up talking like this. And that's not fair on the audience either. Use the microphone.
Yeah, if you start to wander away from your point, or you're not quite sure what you're saying, you'll drop your voice and then just start to ramble in the silence. But basically a microphone will keep you at one level for the entire time.
Yes.
All right, the next one is the get no questions person. Now, this person has waited till the end of their presentation, and then they've said, has anybody got a question? Of which it's usually just a big tumbleweed rolling through the room. Nobody asked any questions, and then you slowly just disappear off the stage.
Oh, thanks so much. It's been great being here. Thanks for having me. Goodbye.
Yeah.
It's awful. It's awful.
It is awful, especially if you've actually created a moment and then you've gone and distracted that moment by asking for questions of which you didn't get any. Or the worst one is actually maybe someone does ask a question and it completely derails everything that you've said because the question had nothing to do with what you were presenting about or was impossible to answer.
So the simple solution to this, and I learnt this from our good friend Matt Church, is if you are going to take questions, you take questions not at the end of your talk. Let's say you're talking for an hour at about the 45-minute mark. If you're going to open the floor to questions, that's when you have a little question time, and then you come back and do your fantastic finish, your powerful close, your provocation, your call to action, your altar call, whatever it is that you are closing with. You do that at the end. You don't give away that power moment for someone else to take over with their silly question.
Yeah.
And when you set the questions up, there's a couple of ideas of how you ask for questions that is more professional and more slick than, does anyone have any questions?
Yeah.
So that some of the things you can say, what questions do you guys have? Or I'll sometimes say, I'm going to take questions now. You can ask me anything. I don't promise to answer. Maybe you've got a question about how leadership applies in your own situation. Maybe you think most of what I've said is bullshit and you want to ask a challenging question. Good, let's have that. Perhaps you want to ask a question about what you can do with the information we've been talking about today. So I'm going to take 2 questions from the floor, and I'll take one from this side of the room and one from this side of the room. So who's ready to ask their question? Yeah. And so you set it all up so that it gives people the freedom, the permission. It lets people know that if just 2 brave people put their hands up, this whole awkwardness will be over. You don't ask, do you have questions? You ask what questions, and then you give them a guide about the kinds of things. And you set people up to challenge you. And because there will always, in my experience, particularly as a woman speaking, there'll always be a man who wants to tell you you're wrong about something. And so just let him have his moment in the sun.
Yeah. Another technique you can use might be just more of a medium-sized group, so you could 15 to 20 people. What you can do is you can go, okay, so what I want you to do is just turn to the person next to you and I want you to tell them something that stuck out for you over the last hour, a piece of information that you heard that you go, oh, that was really interesting. I wouldn't mind hearing more about that. Just tell the person next to you. So they just have a quick interaction. There's a little bit of voice in the room, and then it settles again, and you can say, hands up who heard something that was the same as what they had. And then someone might put up their hand and you can call them out. What was it that you guys said? So that's one way. Or it could be who heard something that they had forgotten already within the 60 minutes and they put their hand up. What was yours? So it's a way to just force interaction that becomes questioning.
Yes.
Exactly. Then it just leads into it. So different techniques for different sizes of the room.
Love it. Love it.
The next one is the finish early person. So you were supposed to speak for, say, 90 minutes, but you kind of got to 60 minutes and ran out of steam. Or it was a 30-minute presentation and you got to 15 minutes and now you got 15 minutes to fill. Or you just go, hey, well, let's leave it there. Any questions? No? All right. See ya.
It's been really great. Thanks for having me. Goodbye. So I think there's a couple of things that can help with this. One is it's about practice and about preparation, and make sure that you are realistic about how long things take or don't take, but also always have more content than you need, but not necessarily all in your slide deck, because we're going to talk about another persona in a minute, and that's somebody who runs out of time. So you're trying to do that middle ground. So my suggestion is, let's say you're going to make 3 main points in your talk. Always have a point 4 with a story, with a case study, with an example ready to go. So if for some reason you get to the 25-minute mark and you're supposed to have another 35 minutes of content and you go, I'm running out, I'm on my last 2 slides, you know that this is where you go into another point. Doesn't have to be a slide. It might be an exercise that you introduce or another story that you tell. So you just have more content than you need, not necessarily in your slide deck, but just in preparation in your head so you can bring it out if you need to.
And it can also be your ability to create more length within some of the topics that you've got. So if you are telling a story as a way to back up a point or cement a point, there's different versions of that story that can take slightly longer or be reduced or expanded. So that's really where you're starting to get confident is, there's the 30-second version of a story that you might need to use if you have to speed up time. But there's also a 3-minute version of that story. And if you really thought about it, there's probably a 13-minute version of that story if you were really starting to pad stuff out. So within the techniques that we teach in our 30-minute presenter program, that's one of the things that we look at is how do you expand time, shrink time, how do you get to a point where you can, if you need to, speak off the cuff without panicking?
The presenter persona, that's the opposite of finish early, is the run out of time presenter. And so rather than them just adjust what they're doing in a smooth and seamless way, they keep telling the audience that they're out of time. Yeah, sorry guys, I'm just running out of time here. And so then they just click through all these great looking slides and go, yeah, I haven't got time for that one, ignore that one. Yeah, no, that's a really good one. Oh, that's an amazing case study. I haven't got time for that today. Look at those figures, that impressive. No, click. And I did this last week. So last week I completely mucked up my timing for a talk that I was giving to a women's group in Te Awamutu. And I did exactly what we teach not to do. I had to I flicked through the slides and went, oh, look, this is some amazing stuff I wanted to share with you, but I ran out of time. So yeah, maybe you'll have me back another time. Oh, that's a great story. Oh, click. And as I was doing it, I'm going, I hate myself. You're the worst. I knew it was bad, but I just got stuck in that. Yeah, so again, I'm not preaching from perfection. I'm just after some progress.
Yeah. So do you know what caused it?
I think it's because I wanted the session to be interactive, but I didn't know how interactive it would be. And the women were giving me such great examples when we were sharing. So it turned a little bit more into a workshop. And and chat more than a one-way presentation. If it had just been me talking at them, I would have flicked through the slides. But because we broke it up to have more discussion, it then meant I had too much content. So what I should have done is put up a holding slide, and while they were having one of their discussions, I should have just gone in and skipped forward maybe 15 slides in my deck. But because I was so into having the discussion with them and we were having such a good time, I just stayed in being with them mode, and I forgot to switch into, actually, you've got to close this, and by closing it, you need to be at slide 50 by now, not still at slide 30. So that left me going, I just want to leave you guys with one last story. Click, 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 click. And as I was doing it, I thought, oh, you bloody rookie. You're too old to be a rookie. So, even the best amongst us make these rookie errors. So, yeah, don't be me.
Don't be a Sacha. But the reason I did ask that is I think there's two versions of this. There is the person that for some reason they start running out of time because maybe someone starts interacting more or they spend more time in an area. But then there's the person that's just packed so much stuff in that they've got too much content for their presentation. Yeah. And so all of a sudden they've got 65 slides and it's a 30-minute presentation. They're literally just flicking through, and they built it that way because they were nervous they were going to run out of content. But actually it's had the reverse effect. And people are now annoyed or distracted with the fact that you didn't get to everything, but you over-prepared it. In fact, you probably didn't even prepare it. You just kept building in more and more and more and more content, and you never practiced it. Not you, Sash, but, the other person.
We'll be right back.
If there was one skill that could double your income, advance your career, and increase your ability to influence, it is the skill of presenting. Whether it's on stage, in the boardroom, or at a job interview, the 30-Minute Presenter program will help take you to the next level. So check out our Instagram page, click the link in the bio, and get started on the 30-Minute Presenter program.
No. And also that's because we have this misunderstanding where we go, value is delivered by how many points I can give the audience, as opposed to value is delivered by the quality of the experience and the memorable nature, how I made them feel, how I inspired them to think, how I challenged their existing worldview. That's where value is, not I gave them 25 different models and content data points.
Yeah.
So just check in that you're not equating volume with value.
So our next one is Random Story Guy. Random Story Guy just starts either with a random story that makes no sense, it doesn't get tied back to anything, or it just becomes a random story. It doesn't add anything to the presentation. It doesn't create context. It's not there for any other reason. It's just like they've kind of mentally, it's popped into their head, and as a result, it's now come out of their mouth, and it becomes another version of distraction.
One version of this is also the person who just says what they're thinking. So, for example, you make a mistake with a word. So you say, I went to the hospital instead of hospital. But if you're delivering it, it goes like this. So the other day I went to the hospital. Hospital. Where did that come from? Hospital. Of course I meant hospital. Why would I say hospital when I meant anyway? So I went to the hospital. And you can just see that so much of that is just verbal noise where you're in your own head a bit, really conscious of what it is that you're saying and looking to correct and have this. So it's not even a story. It's just like random spillage. And that's very easy to become random story. So the other day when I went to the hospital, hospital. I mean, why would I say hospital when what I mean is hospital? That's such a weird thing. In fact, that happened the other day too. I was in a meeting and I meant to say finance, but I said binance, like bisexual. I was like, I'm not bisexual. Why am I thinking about that all the time? Like, why would you think I was bisexual just because I said Binance when I meant finance? I mean, it's this thing that anyway. And so it's like there's no discipline around what's coming out. And it can come from a good place. It's like it's sharing and it's authentic. It's just not appropriate. It doesn't add anything to what it is that you're trying to teach or convey. I'm also guilty of this.
But you would probably be the master of being able to make it a comedy moment and build it right up to the end where you walk off stage and say, all right, bye, sexuals, everybody.
Yeah, totally. It's like sometimes that stuff happens, particularly if you are tired or you've been doing a lot or you're under stress or any of those things. So if you're an experienced presenter and this is happening, you'll develop the skills to pull it back in. But if you're in those rookie formative stages, just be careful of how indulgent it is to just randomly be sharing stuff because it pops into your brain.
All right, and our last one in our list of presenter personas is the opposite of the cage cougar. It is the podium positioner. This person just stands behind a lectern, a podium, and they just hold on to it for dear life, and they just stand there. They don't move from it. They're literally using it as a security blanket. They can't move their arms because they're too busy holding on to it. And you just end up in the one space. And again, that can also become a distraction because it's weird that you're not moving. It's weird that you're not becoming visual with your hands and animated. It's just one position and just holding on for dear life.
And it makes you much more likely to be a reader, not a reader of your slides, just a reader of your speech. I went to a conference in Wellington once and they had a really professional MC who did a very good job. I'm the MC and welcome everybody. Terrific. He was also one of the speakers. So he had a slot where he was a speaker. And I was blown away that he stood at the lectern and read. He had some slides, but from the lectern he read his talk. That is not the price of entry to the game. You have got to be good enough that you are able to speak. Maybe you can reference your notes, but if you're going to stand behind the podium, that leads itself to reading, and both of those things are bad.
Yeah. And when you talk about referencing notes, it's probably a good point to maybe finish up on it. Something we do talk about in the program is we can teach you how to present and not use notes. But what we're talking about with notes is those bits of paper that are on top of each other that you're just going through and it's like, okay, I was going to do this and this, and you're rattling through notes. Your PowerPoint slides can be a prompt to help you. So it's like, here's a picture of, that's right, I use this example of a story when I see that picture. That is notes. It's just the audience isn't seeing it like that. Or it could be that your notes might be that you've got your presentation mapped out and we teach you a mapping system that you can just have at the side there so you know where you are and what your timing looks like. But it's not that now here's my story that I'm going to be reading out or telling. And we see it a lot at weddings, right? And a lot of the new generation coming through, they're just using their phone now. So instead of having my notes, I've got my phone and I'm going through and I'm talking and I'm looking at my phone and I'm talking, I'm looking at my phone, and it's a distraction.
And I know that it doesn't mean you're not prepared, but the old school in me makes it feel like you just jotted down some notes in the car before you came in.
Yeah.
And that might not be fair, and maybe other audiences don't perceive it in that same way. So I could well be wrong about the use of phone versus some Post-it notes. But I also think in presenter view for PowerPoint, you can put some notes under your slide, but that needs to be the three things you're going to talk about. So here's the picture of the eggs, and I'm going to talk about chicken and egg theory. What comes first? Is it your mindset? Is it your whatever? I'm going to share the story. So my notes are going to say beach story. That's going to remind me to share the story of the beach. And then I'm going to put Auckland University research about mental health. Yeah. And that's a note to remind me to talk about that when we're looking at the eggs. Yeah. And so you've got 3 bullet points. Those are not the bullet points on your slides. It's just in your presenter notes to remind you.
That is such a good point as well, because sometimes you might have relied on a whole lot of presenter notes, but then you get to the venue where you're speaking and you can't see your laptop because it's now plugged in at the back of the room or it's on a flash drive. And really, that's one of the other things we talk about. We provide you a checklist of things that you need to go through. Who's introducing you? What is the mic setup? Where is your computer going to be? What is the table setup going to be in the room? All of those things that actually will make a difference. Who's on before you? How many people are actually coming? What is the group going to be like? Stuff that you probably haven't been focusing on because you've been too busy trying to think about how you're going to do your introduction and not actually the stuff that was going to make or break you.
I think where we're leading to is that people should probably invest in the 30-minute present program
Yeah.
to avoid. But I hope that you can recognise perhaps yourself or others in some of these presenter personas. And I'm not one of these in particular, but I've been all of these people at various times, right? I've fallen into those traps and mistakes, and I'm trying to be better than that. And I'm trying to be better than that, not in service of my own ego, but in service of the audience. And every time you get the opportunity to speak in front of 1, 2, 3, 4, 400 people, your obligation is to say, how do I serve this audience and make the time investment that they have in being here worth it for them? What can I give to them?